Bruce, thank you so much for joining. And at the risk of embarrassing you, because I know you're a very, very humble person, but your contributions to the city and to so many people are just phenomenal. Between your law career, your artistry, your community service, Cincinnati is a much, much better place for your being here. And so many people are so much better people for your being here. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining today.
Bill, thanks for saying those kind words. I'm going to flip it and say that Dr. Bill Barrett has been a tremendous gift to our city, a gift of friendship to my wife Mimi and myself, and has an innovation quality to the way he's approaching cancer in our community that is on a remarkable path. Cincinnati Cancer Foundation, Cincinnati Cancer Advisors is helping countless Cincinnatians and beyond deal with cancer. And this is the vision of Dr. Bill Barrett. And I'm sure many of you who are listening, have some family experience with cancer. And I just am so pleased that we have in our community a resource like Cincinnati Cancer Advisors, the foundation, and Dr. Bill Barrett as a leader. It means a lot to the community.
Thank you so much, Bruce. The feeling is more than mutual. And so I was wondering if we could just have a few-minute conversation about your areas of interest over the years, including your law practice, your career as an artist, the community service, and starting off just with background relative to education, formal and informal. I know you attended Brown University and Northwestern Law School, and things are a lot tamer now throughout our society. But in your law school days, that was back around the time the movie Paper Chase came out. I'm guessing the Socratic method was pretty serious at that time.
It was. Well, what was a little bit even more serious at the time for me was that I met my wife Mimi my freshman year at Northwestern Law School, and we're coming up on our 50th anniversary with each other.
Congratulations.
And she has been a wonderful influence. And we were married while she was at Northwestern Dental School and I was in the law school. And so we got through graduate school together with no money and started our careers together and had 4 children. So when I went to Brown University from Cincinnati, it was a turbulent time in the 1970s, as you can imagine, and I was lucky to connect with 2 mentors there who were professors, a professor named Gordon Wood and Jack Thomas, and they inspired an interest in American history. I loved it, and then that was a natural segue to law. Went to Northwestern Law School and met a judge who was the graduate of the law school named John Grady, and he was the United States District Court Chief Judge for the Northern District of Illinois, and I became his law clerk after I was graduated from law school. He was a very important individual in my life, a wonderful judge, and I saw a lot of law and order being dispensed in the courtroom on both the civil and criminal side. But also he had a great interest in constitutional law, which has turned out to be my area of interest, which overlapped with the, interest in American history. So that kind of takes me up to law school, and both were, as I'm sure with you, it's your formative years when you're in your 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the law is beautiful, isn't it? The fact that there can be civil ways of settling disputes, and just thinking historically and across cultures from prehistoric days to the Ten Commandments to constitutional law, it is fascinating, isn't it? And in terms of the basic tenets of quote-unquote fairness, across cultures, across times, I'm sure you've given a lot of thought to that over the years.
So I teach a course called Constitutional Conversation at University of Cincinnati and Miami University, and I've done that since 2016. And what I emphasize to these young students is the importance of being a United States citizen, of being a citizen who knows their Constitution. I have a copy in my pocket right now. Our only textbooks, the Constitution. I tell the students I really don't care about their political opinions, but I do care about their legal reasoning and that they're able to say that there are 27 amendments to the Constitution, that it was founded in 1787, the things that we can agree upon as citizens. If I were to try to condense the United States Constitution into a visual, I would focus on 4 wonderful paintings by Norman Rockwell, which you're probably familiar with, called The Four Freedoms. Freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of worship, and freedom of speech. That pretty much sums it up in many ways. The Constitution's about the length of a short story, but there's lots in those 4 freedoms that describe the essence of what the Constitution is. That's why it's so important.
No kidding. And amazing that just the concept that a jury of your peers, because there's no completely objective way of determining anything, but that's about as fair as it gets. And I'm going to guess that 12 Angry Men must be one of your all-time favorite movies.
It's one of the all-time favorites. And, I saw the actual juries come in when I was in my 20s in the Chicago courtroom, and we would have people sitting in the courtroom who would come in just to get out of the cold in Chicago, and they became jury prediction experts, and they would go thumbs up, thumbs down, and they were right more than we were.
How about that?
As what the outcome is. But the Constitution, because it's the most important concept is popular sovereignty, we the people, that's the way it starts, to have the revolutionary idea that our people, our jury of our peers would decide our future and even the penalties was a radical idea in 1787, that your life could be controlled not by monarchy anymore, but by your peers. And so that is a deep concept in the Constitution, the jury trial, due process, and popular sovereignty.
Gives you goosebumps, doesn't it?
It really does, and especially the judge I worked for, the thing he would do more than anything else would be to thank the jury for their service. And when I tried my first jury trial in my 20s, when I came back to Cincinnati, didn't really know anything about anything. And I think the jury probably fell asleep during my opening argument. But not a great big case, but a lot to learn. But over the years, just tremendous respect for jury service and for the service that citizens do on a jury.
And as far as things you learned over your careers professionally in law, I remember you representing the university in the negotiations with the nurses union, which always had a potential for being very contentious, and you were always so level-headed, logical, rational, fair, and those negotiations came out way better for your presence than had you not been there. But I'm just curious how that evolved. I mean, picture yourself in those negotiations early in your career versus late in your career. I'm just curious about some of the lessons you learned in those or other important cases you had over the years.
Well, thanks, Bill. I mean, it kind of started with, I've always been gravitated toward places with a strong mission. The mission of the Cincinnati Art Museum is to connect people through the power of art. The mission of Cincinnati Cancer Foundation is to reduce suffering and mortality of cancer through care, education, and research. So the mission of University Hospital seemed to me to be about as important a mission as we could have. So once I knew what the mission was, which was to keep the hospital running and to be fair to all the employees, not to mention to make sure that the wages and benefits were fair, I realized that, closing a labor contract would be a lot of listening and a lot of patience. And the university was always fair when I was there, and we did our work quietly. My mom was a nurse, a medical technologist, so I had a special affinity with the nursing staff, still do. Respected the physicians, and it was all a matter of just getting the job done. I think I learned more from that experience than almost any other in the law.
Well, thanks for doing such a fantastic job for so many years. Yeah, switching gears to your passion and career in art. And I'm just curious. I'm sure you've taken walks in the woods with John Ruthven, and the things that John would point out and feel and sense that at least me as a non-artist would never have noticed. And I'm just curious today, when you walk through the woods, you walk through the street, you walk through downtown, do you feel like as an artist that you do sense things that you might not otherwise if you didn't have that keen ability?
Well, this will sound unusual, but I think everybody is an artist, whether they make pictures or not. And everybody's an artist because we're wired for, lack of a better word here, aesthetic experience. Mm-hmm. And that means that whether it's on a beach in Florida or walking Cincinnati woodlands or hanging out in our parks or riding your bicycle or seeing something beautiful, it's something that I think people need. So I'm chairman of the Cincinnati Art Museum, been president for 2 years. I've got 2 more years as chairman. And so I watch people come through the door. In fact, earlier this morning, just watched people come through the door. Their faces light up, especially when they find out it's free. That helps.
Thanks to Dick Rosenthal.
Yeah, and but John Ruthven was a great example. John, good friend, used to walk 5 miles every day.
Yep.
And then he did that before he picked up a paintbrush. And the reason he did that is to remind himself of this aesthetic experience. It's not so much about making pictures, because AI can make pictures. AI can make really good pictures. But AI can't have an aesthetic experience. And that's what, art and humanity, I think, is deeply about.
Mm-hmm. And how do you approach a painting from concept to pre-planning to actual execution, and then when do you know you're finished? I mean, it must be so tempting to keep touching it up and keep going further. And do you ever go too far and think I should have stopped a few steps earlier?
It's such a good question. I'll answer the end part first. And that is that the best thing to do when you think you've done enough is to stop. And it's like you stop talking when you're a lawyer, when you sit down and shut up after a while. But what you do is if you think you're about there with the painting, either outdoors or indoors, you just put it down for a few days and come back and you'll see it afresh. Another trick is to hold a painting up to the mirror. And reversing the image and there's some neuro aesthetics involved in this, but when you see something fresh, you can see things that you left out or whatever. There's a technical part to painting for sure, or to art. I have a 3rd floor studio. I have a wood shop in my basement. And the first part is what inspires you. So if you are visually inspired, that's one thing. The other telltale for me is what I'm doing something that can't be expressed in words. If it can be expressed in words, then I probably need to put the paintbrush down. Mm-hmm. If it can't be expressed in words, then you sort of go in that direction, if that makes sense.
And I'm sure you found over the years that people in different arts a lot of times have similar talents. I mean, the things that Thomas Jefferson, the different forms of art that he had an interest in. I saw recently that Roberta Flack initially wanted to be a concert pianist, and to think that that voice had not been heard. But do you see that if somebody is a painter, they may be a musician, they may be a singer, they may be an architect?
Yeah, so there's a lot there, but so the way to look at this is when we say the arts, we mean the humanities. That means singing, dancing, performing arts, visual arts, gardening, cooking. My wife is a gardener. I think she also does needlepoint. Mm-hmm. Those are arts. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about just paintings in museums. The other thing about the United States Constitution to tie this together is some people don't know there's an arts and science clause in the original Constitution. Our original Constitution in 1787 mentions the word art and science, but it doesn't mention the word democracy. The reason for that is that we established a republic, and the framers, people like Jefferson and so forth, said, well, listen, if we're going to have a government of, by, and for the people where the people aren't depending upon a monarch, then the people will have to be informed. That doesn't mean formally educated, but it means that the arts and sciences need to come together. So in the Constitution, in Section 1, look it up, I was amazed to see the Arts and Science Clause. Here's what it says, that one of its purposes, the general welfare of we the people, depends upon, ready, promoting the progress of arts and science. Not arts or science, but arts and science together. And that's what the American Enlightenment of the 18th century was so good at. Think Benjamin Franklin, think Jefferson. These are people who were enthralled by science. So we can take a lead from that today as we see arts and science coming together.
Beautiful. Thank you. And switching gears once again, relative to your incredible service to this community over so many years between the Art Museum and now the Bicycle Crown Project. Do you mind talking about the Crown Project? And it's been a long time coming, but you're just about there.
So the first thing I want to say is we are a bicycling town, and Ride Cincinnati is coming up. And we at the Cincinnati Art Museum have a team in Ride Cincinnati.
Thank you.
And Ride Cincinnati is on September 13th. And you can have an aesthetic experience riding up and down the Ohio River with great scenery. So we have to be safe on our bikes, safety first. We all know that. But thanks to wonderful Cincinnatians like Wim Portman, Jan Portman, Sean McGrory, I could keep naming names. The nonprofit Wasson Way Board, the Crown Board, a community effort. We now have the makings of a 34-mile connective trail. I think it's among the best urban connective trails in America right now, connecting our parks and connecting, I think, over 50 neighborhoods in Cincinnati. It's a wonderful trail. I'm sure many listeners have been on the trail.
Yeah, it's awesome. And speaking of the parks, you've done such a fantastic job with the parks for so many years. And I saw a publication a year or two ago that Cincinnati rated as having the best parks in the country, and I certainly agree with that. And that has to have been a labor of love.
Well, we love Cincinnati, and I wouldn't really want to live anywhere else. And raised 4 children here, and the parks, I believe 10% of the land mass of Cincinnati is public parkland. Going back to, the 19th century when, great long history. So, our art museum is in Eden Park. So we are an art, we've always been since 1881, art in the parks. So the park, the land upon which we sit as an art museum, the hillside that we've put an art climb on and so forth, is parkland, city land. And so the citizens of Cincinnati have this wonderful opportunity to go to Alde Park, Eden Park, and more parks. And that's not true in every city. It's beautiful green space. And of course we have the Smale Park now, and along the riverfront, and you can congregate. Is that where we congregate for Ride Cincinnati?
Right down the street on Sawyer Point.
At Sawyer Point, yeah.
Yeah. So neat. And what if we close by, you talked about so many things that we love about Cincinnati. Are there things about Cincinnati that you particularly love that we haven't touched on so far?
I like the way Cincinnati continues to surprise us with its I'm going to call it creative spirit. If you look around this town, there are so many people doing so many amazing things for their city, for their community, for the healthcare of this community like you do, Bill, that it's in some ways a well-kept secret. Cincinnati was the first American city. What do I mean by that? Every other city, major city, before we were founded in the 18th century was first British. And so there's been a distinctive quality to our town that has just resonated over the years. It's a beautiful city. It's also of course, my bias, it's an arts town. The arts wave, artworks, it just wouldn't be the same city without it. And I think we're in a renaissance right now. I think the city has never been better, and the quality of life here is very good. Of course, part of this is a sales pitch for my 4 children to move back to Cincinnati, but I've got 7 grandchildren now, and maybe some of them will come back as well.
So.
Yeah.
So, but Bruce, thank you. You've had such a fantastic, positive influence on so many aspects of our city, in particular, so many people. So many people for so many years have looked up to you and said, "That's who I want to be."
Oh, Bill!
And what a fine example you are for so many people. So, thank you.
Thank you, my friend.